This is Robert Clotworthy, the narrator of The Curse of Oak Island, and I have a question for you. Could it be that you are listening to The Curse of Oak Island and Beyond live stream?
This is a top pocket find, mate, for sure.
All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to The Curse of Oak Island and Beyond live stream. I'm your host, Jeff Freeman, and tonight, another full house. We got Dale Kearney, John Edwards, and Colin Jamieson. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for being here. So tonight we're going to, somebody's got a, so tonight we're going to be talking about The Curse of Oak Island episode that was on last night, which is of course, season 9, episode number 12, which was The Silver Liner. And I guess I'm thinking we're about halfway through the season. Everybody's thinking, oh, is this it? We're all done there. No. We got a lot more to go. And that was something that Colin and I were just talking about in the pre-show meeting. The fact that, he knows the timeline because he was out there in his boat taking pictures. And at about, what were you saying, Colin, about September time frame is about where we're at in the show right now, or just before that?
Yeah, you're right at the very end of August and the very beginning of first couple of days of September on that one there. So we got a long ways to go because they weren't pulling cans and stuff out to the end of October.
Right.
So
and Dale Kearney. Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No. So there's months left of activity going on.
Yeah, and Dale, you were out there at one point, so that they were still. Well, I don't know if we're allowed to say, but you were out there toward the end. I think like in almost November, weren't it? Something like that.
Yeah, November I was down.
Yeah, so we know they got a lot more filming to do. So, but I was kind of thinking, man, here they are. They're finishing up in the swamp. We'll get to that here in just a little bit, but. Then again, they got a lot more. I mean, and somebody that I just recently talked to that's been on the island kind of indicated the best is yet to come. That some of the episodes that we've just seen have been kind of, but they said it's coming. So, but we know the cans are coming out. We saw that, right? And we're going to talk about that too. They alluding to the next week's episode, cans coming out. So we got some cool stuff happening. I wanted to give a shout out to some of the people showing up here tonight. Tara was like the first one showing up in Facebook over here. Hi, Tara. Welcome. Thank you for being here. Alessandra said, good evening from Nova Scotia.
Hey.
So and then of course Wanda's here. Hi, Wanda. We got Jan and Linda, and I'm Jack Campbell's probably out here someplace. I haven't seen his name pop up, but I'm sure he's out here. Court Lindahl is also watching. Court,
hey, Court.
We were having a little bit of a little meeting this evening with Court, John and I, because he's got a lot of information about a particular segment of the show that was on last night that we're going to be talking about tonight. So he has some insights, some research that he's done that he's shared with us. He said we're allowed to use it, so we're allowed to talk about it. Yeah. And if we fumble around with it too much, Court's going to have to call in, and we'll have to have him on and talk about it. So, all right. So let's see who else we got here. Tom Burns, of course, is out there. He's helping out, working, doing his moderation job. Thank you, Tom and Jan and Linda. Tom. For all the hard work you guys do. There's Jack Campbell. I see him out there. Let's see. So we got Karen. Hi, Karen is here. April is here. Sharon Thompson is here. Oh, Hugh is here. Hey, Hugh. Diane is here. Holton. Let's see. Jack Lepper. I don't know that I've seen you out there. Hi, Jack. Welcome. Thank you for coming. Frank is here. Let's see. Who else we got? Karen Howard. And then over on the YouTube side, we got Mary Molsky's here. Wade Buckles here. Wow. Kate's here. Hi, Kate.
Hey, Kate.
The Woken One. Jan is here. Dale Leslie. I don't know that hello all from Kingston, Ontario. Glad to be back. All right. Well, glad you're here.
Cool. Nice.
Yep. Amy's here. Hi, Amy. Bass Anderson's here. Wow. We got a great chat's here. We got a great crowd already tonight, man. Thank you guys for coming by tonight. And and D Jones, I'm scrolling backwards now to see who I missed at the beginning. Kat, of course. Jeff's in the house. Hey, Jeff. Cheryl Harton. Okay. Hi. Wow. Welcome. Let's see. Who else did I miss here? Karen Falbo, Roberta Harrison. Hi, Roberta. Thank you for coming by tonight. Indy's Antics is here. Sandollar Ray is here. Wow. Sandollar Ray was like the first one over on the YouTube side. I know it always says on YouTube when I fire up the server, it actually goes right out to YouTube and said starting soon or something like that. So it's like, well, we're not, so I have to be careful not to start that too soon before we go live. But one thing I was going to ask of my co-host tonight, help me with the chat, you guys. I don't know what you can see. You can only see, I think, just the StreamYard side. But if you see anybody with an insert, because I miss so many of them, I really do, and I hate that because I don't want to miss somebody's good input, questions, or things like that. So help me with that. If you see a good comment or a question, please, let me know right away, and I'll bring it up so we can talk about it. Sue Jamieson is here. Hi, Sue.
It's my mom. Hi, Mom.
Yeah. Greetings from Halifax.
Hollywood.
Yep. Ray D is here. Hi, Ray. So, so we got Pam Block. We got a great crowd already. Jeff Walsh. Hi, Jeff.
Wow.
Jeff showing up.
Jeff, if I could put a throw out, one thing I love to see is where people are from. So even as it's kind of going, because you see people from outside of the country and all over the world. So whoever's watching, you can kind of stick in what part of the planet you're at would be awesome.
Yeah, it is. It truly is, because it kind of gives us an idea of, where people are located and where they're watching from. Like we get Anne Marie shows up from, from over in Germany, and it's like, man, oh man, up late.
I'm in Halifax.
Yeah, there you go. Diane said hi from Charlotte, North Carolina, so we know where she's at. Tara said, Colin, I thought your pictures that the big cans, and here, I'm going to bring it up here real quick. Let's see. I got to scroll back.
Yeah, I said about the big, they're all kind of there at the same time. And to Jeff's point, we kind of have a little chat before the show gets going, and firing on timelines. So like last night's episode, and they said, we're going to have to shut it down now. It's kind of like we kind of slowly, like they still end up working there for a couple of weeks on the excavator. And so it was about September 12th or the 14th. They had a lot on the go. Like they were setting up the big crane in the money pit. They were still we were still speculating what happened over on the Smiths Cove side. They had the sonic drill rig over there. They were drilling a hole. There was a barge. They were doing divers off of the south side of the island, off Money Pit, which we haven't seen in the episode yet. They were doing something.
Yep.
And they were getting all the pump equipment, because I think, Jeff, I sent you some pictures. Maybe we'll stick up later of in the swamp of what the big water transfer pumps and the big hoses. So they were starting to get all that set up for pumping up into the pit. So I think the can started around the end of September. Is when the cans started going in. So, and
you figure from the end of September until the end of the season, like I said, we got probably at least 10, 12 more episodes. We're going to be covering a lot of stuff. It's all going to be kind of concentrated, I think, around the money pit. So, man, I mean, we probably got some really great stuff coming around the money pit area. So, Richard Brooks. Hey, Richard, from the crisp northern Michigan. Yes. Well, I'm going to be up there in a couple weeks. When I pass by, I'm going to wave as I go by. But I'm actually going up to the UP here in a couple weeks for the weekend, and I'm going to do a little. I'm going to try to do a little live from up there. Maybe we'll see. It won't be Oak Island so much, but anyway, I kind of want to show you guys where I'm going to be when I'm up there. So Tara said she is PEI. So there you go, guys. Let's see. What else we got here? Some people logging in saying where they're from. Frank said he's from Minnesota.
We got a Germany is watching.
Yeah, that's Anne Marie. Yep, that's Anne Marie. Wow, watching.
Wow.
Let's see, Diane. Oh, we got a Patrice Jerome. Derome. Jerome. I hope I'm not butchering your last name there, Patrice. But hi from Montreal. So there you go.
Hey.
You got
Yep.
an Ireland in there. I love the overseas stuff. I think that's super
I
fantastic.
know. You said there's an Ireland?
Ireland is here watching
I
from
saw Ireland, yeah.
watching
Oh, my
Jeff's live
goodness.
stream. Yeah.
Barbara
Jeez.
from the Barbary Coast. Jacksonville, Florida. Irvin. Kat Fulton's from Halifax. Wanda's from Mississippi. Wow. Let's see, where that tiny drill, I bet you could get some gold. Let's see, Jeffrey Leisure. Let's see if I can find that over here so I can bring it up on the screen. I had a lot to say here. Well, maybe Woken One said, I hope I'm wrong, but his opinion, he thinks the fellowship could be jumping the gun by sending cans down in the money pit. Well, or do they? You're saying they may not. I think they have. I don't think they would be jumping the gun. I don't think they'd be putting the cans down if they weren't pretty doggone sure.
Well, they would have to have some collaborative data to be doing that, and they're not going to throw money down the tubes like that.
Well,
No.
they got the water samples with the gold and kind of shrunk it down.
I think Steve's got that all mapped out perfectly.
Yeah.
Right to the friggin' dot.
Yep.
And of course, where a Chamber of Secrets perhaps is. So, you know kind of where to sink the can.
Yep. Let's see. Oh, so where that tiny drill is, I bet you could get some gold every time it brought up the drill from out of the ground, and all of the water you could. Well, maybe that's possible if you did some panning, because I don't know if that would show up. The small particles, those small little granules would show up in a with the metal. They take the pinpointer. I don't know if they would show up or not.
I think they would, wouldn't they? It'd be pretty
I
sensitive.
don't know if there's enough of them, it would, but I don't know. Yeah, that was the Awoken One that said from Ireland. I did not know that the Awoken One was from in Ireland. Wow. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. Thank you. I did not know that you were from Ireland. Let's see. Central Wisconsin. Oh, Mary's in Central Wisconsin. Mark wrote Edgewater, Florida. Probably nice and warm down there, I would imagine. Who said Dayuper? That's me. A Youper. Yeah, that's I'm a Youper. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna be going back up there or going up there, looking to have a good time. I know I'm kind of let's see, this is so cool looking at everybody's putting where they're from now. Andrew Jones, I butchered this last time. Grand Manan Island. All right. New Brunswick, and that's New Brunswick is where our friend Tom is from.
That's a beautiful spot, Grand Manan.
Yeah, I'm gonna hopefully gonna get to see that this year when the weather finally gets warmed up. I really hope that I get to get up there.
New Brunswick's beautiful. You get to New Brunswick, it's beautiful there.
Mm-hmm. All right, so wow, we got a lot of good. Kat said I used to pan at the museum when I had the gold exhibit. We used tailings from a Nova mine. We found tiny specks in the bottom, so yes, it's possible to pan the muck.
So wait a minute. Are you guys saying this was an ancient mining operation going on in Oak Island? Is that what Sorry.
I'm just saying. I'm just saying there's a possibility that you could find gold up there. The little flakes. Like
another thing too is they may have found stuff and just not put it in the video to watch on TV. They may not say anything until close to the end.
Right.
So you don't know if they are finding stuff in the boreholes. They may just show not what they don't find.
Yep.
That's what I always look at.
Yeah, we know that they don't show us everything. I mean, there's
so you never know what they found because they may just wait till later episodes.
We're not even halfway through the season. They can't show you can't show the bricks of gold on day one.
No, you can't get the money shot just yet. So
not until the end.
See. Yeah, so Jeff Leisure says it will show up inside the green pan after you bring up the drill. If you pin that all at the mud, it will show up and saw the green pan, all that gold. Yep. So yeah, if you have a green pan, you're gonna see it for sure.
So Jeff, you get somebody walking their dog and watching you.
Oh, that's awesome.
Now, how that's got to be on the cell phone, I would imagine.
Minus
So,
6 Fahrenheit wind chill.
Wow. Yeah,
More
Jen
people from
from Long
Germany.
Island, New York. Jack Lepper was hello from Gurney. Where is that? Wow, that's Jack from Gurney. Wow.
Wow.
Holy
People
cow.
still logging in.
Yeah, interesting. Wow, we got look at this, Diane. Oh boy, I would never.
And then you have Pat from Mississippi.
Schonbauer. I'm sorry, Danny Schonbauer. Hello from Germany. So we got another one from Germany that's up
Wow.
really, really late tonight. So, wow. Okay. Well, and I wanted to thank you guys if you would, definitely help me with the chat tonight. So, we gotta. I hate the good comments, and I know I do so much. I did want to say too, right here, while at the beginning of the show, that we had our Carmen Legge. Carmen Legge was on last Saturday, and it was so much fun. And Carmen is such a wonderful guy. What great information and stories he had to share with us. I thought it was really great. He was having a little bit of internet, like he does. He's out in where he lives. He doesn't have great internet, so he just called in. We put up his picture and a couple other pictures, and he called in, but it was still a lot of fun. We had a great time with him. If you haven't seen that, you can still check it out. It's on our Facebook page. It's also on YouTube, so you can check that out anytime. But that one was a lot of fun. And then tomorrow night, Tom Burns and I, we're going to be recapping episode number 1 and episode number 4 of Beyond Oak Island. Episode number 4 was on last night, and that is... So we're going to be recapping that, and we have a special guest. If you watch that show at the beginning of the episode 1, about the 3:30 mark, 3 minutes and 30 seconds mark, we had a special guest was on. Robert Westrick. Robert Westrick. Westrick was on, and he was, sitting there, and they had him on camera, and he was giving a lot of information about the 1715 fleet. So Linda and them, they reached out to him, Jan, and asked if he would come on, and he was more than happy to come on. So he's going to be here recapping that with us. And this man has got so much information at fleet and what happened to it, what they were doing in the first place, where they were going. So that's going to be interesting. So really looking forward to that. So join us. That's tomorrow at 7:30. Tom Burns and I. It's going to be Beyond Oak Island, talking about episodes 1 and 4, the 1815 fleet. We're going to go through though, and then we're going to get a lot of insights from Robert. So that's going to be awesome. Really looking forward to that. And then nothing going on this coming Saturday. Matter of fact, until next Wednesday, we're going to do the recap of episode 13 next Wednesday, and then there won't be anything for a little bit. And I'll be leaving out of town, going up to the I-500 snowmobile race up in Michigan in the UP. So,
Are you racing?
What's that?
Are you racing?
I know. I would. I don't know. I'm probably too old for that now. I don't know. So there's some guys older than I that still race at 500 miles.
Wow.
On a big oval track. So what was that, John?
Jeff, we do have something coming up this Sunday, I believe.
Oh, yes, we do. I'm sorry.
Yes, we do.
Beyond Our World with John Edwards and I. Thank you for that reminder. John Edwards and I will be doing Beyond Our World, and we have special guest now, believe it or not, Court Lindahl. Court Lindahl, I mean, not only does he have all this research about the founding fathers and the Beale and tonight's stuff we're going to be talking about.
Yes.
He also has paranormal and UFO type related
and reptilian creatures.
Let's not get all the way.
We'll just leave it.
He's got some interesting stuff he's going to be talking about. So, man, so that's what time is it? Go ahead.
7 to 8:30.
Yeah,
on Sunday, and we'll have court from 7 to 8 ish.
Yeah. So that's going to be a lot of fun. So thank you. Yeah, thanks for the reminder on that. So yeah, Court Lindahl on Sunday at 7 p.m. Eastern is when we're getting started, and then we'll go as long as
we'll go 8:39 as long as they want to go.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
All right. Woof. So much to talk about there to get things rolling. Again, thank you guys for being here tonight, and thanks for my co-host. So let's get started with episode number 12, The Silver Liner. Get my pictures up here. all the pictures that I love to have, as you guys well know. All right. So there we go with the Oak Island, and kind of looking down on the money pit there. Now, starting off on this particular episode, they were out there at the money pit. And if you remember the last couple of weeks, they were at AB 13, and then last week was A 13, I think it was A 13. They're moving in like 2.5 foot increments around that, and punching those holes in there. And this week they were at AB 13.5, which is again 2.5 feet away from where they were. They're trying to follow. Remember when they had a couple weeks ago, they punched at AB 13 and they hit that chamber. It had to be some sort of a chamber or a tunnel or something. And all that water and air was popping up out of there. I mean, just shooting. The water was just coming out of there, 3 feet high, popping up out of that pipe. Which obviously indicates that they hit some sort of I thought of like puncturing a water balloon, and it was just shooting up through there, all that air and water coming out. So they were kind of trying to follow along there, follow that and see, what are they in a chamber or what's going on? So that was the idea of this 2.5 feet moving over 2.5 feet each time. So they were out there, Terry and Charles were out there, and they were doing AB 13.5. They were thinking initially that they were looking for that offset chamber that you've seen Marty talk about. And Marty, he kind of holds his fist up talking about this being the chamber, and then this tunnel leading up to it, to where it would be up off above sea level, so it wouldn't get flooded when the flood tunnels flooded the money pit. So it would be up out of on dry ground. That was the idea behind this. That's what they thought they were chasing. It could still be. So that's what they were going here. They did bring up a couple core samples. They had one about 18 feet, and it was just nothing but solid. He called it solid, dense blue-gray till. They hope to find their offset chamber approximately 65 to 70 feet. Alex shows up. They get another core sample, 18 to 28 feet. Again, nothing really to see there. Then they get another sample about 77 feet, and this is when Craig shows up out there. And again, they really didn't find anything. So what happened was, and what I grabbed this picture because Dan Henske, we don't get to see Dan a lot on the island these days. So it's really cool to see Dan Henske out there working with the guys. So, kudos to Dan for being out there with them. But again, they had no artifacts, nothing really to talk of. They did not hit a tunnel again in this particular borehole. It was a complete miss. Now, a miss can always tell you things too, that you've gone just off of the edge of it. So, okay, that miss means, okay, now go 2.5 feet in a different direction and see if you hit it. So you need that because you've got to follow a path, right? If you don't follow a path, then, once you follow that, you hit it, you got, a chamber again. You remember it dropped like 7 feet when that drill went down on the ground. When it got to, what was it, 60 or so, 65, something like that.
Yep.
It dropped about 7 feet. So, but this time they didn't hit anything. So honestly, the whole money pit thing was nothing to really see here, but yet it does help them because it tells them that they did not hit it. So don't go any more that direction, go back another direction and keep going. So, all right. Dana's here. Hi, Dana. Dana showed up, made it. All right. Let's see. Oh, you yeah. Wouldn't that be like Dan Henske, just to show you how Tom said, wouldn't that be just like Dan Henske to just stroll by into the money pit for more? Yeah. All right. So then from there, the show jumps over to lot 4. And lot 4, you've got Gary Drayton, of course, and Peter and David Fernetti. And this is looking at lot 4 from, I guess this would be the north side of the island. What is that? Roughly? Northeast side of the island? Angle-wise? Because you see the causeway over here on the backside. So, yeah. So lot 4, and so there it is there. And looking at lot 4, that's where they are. They were working along the beach, and they got a hit. The first thing they dug up was a piece of pop can or something like that. I think it was aluminum. No big deal there. Something that just washed up. There's the guys, Peter and David Frenetti. So then they're moved over a little bit and they're doing some work, and then they come across this piece of copper plating. There's been a lot of speculation about this thing. We saw it, there was a lot of people talking about it in the chat today on the Facebook group, Oak Island and Beyond Facebook group. There was a lot of chat about a particular piece. We don't really know for sure, where it came from. And I don't know. And again, I'm not I don't work with metals, so I don't know if there's any way to tell. Like with lead, they can take the isotopes and find out, basically where the lead was mined from, like they did with the cross, and came up with South France. But I don't think you can do that with copper. I really don't know. Yeah, that's what somebody said. Oh, Pam Block said it was great to see the Frenetti brothers working on the island, and I think so too. That was really cool. Gail Jocelyn Graham. How much are we being led down some path? If we didn't know the story, would we be doing this? Would we be doing the same story? I'm not sure exactly what you mean by, are you talking about Prometheus kind of taking us in a particular direction? Maybe. But then we get over to the research center. I'm sorry, were you going to say something? Oh
no, I'd say it was that piece was found on the beach. So I mean, it's kind of one of these. Is it an Oak Island artifact? Did it come from somewhere else?
I was just looking up to see if they could date it. There is a way to date it, but I don't know if they're going to do it.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah, it really could, and that's a thing. We, they did take it over to the research center and had Carmen come out, and Carmen got a look at it. And again, I just had Carmen on the show last Saturday, and he couldn't talk about this because they hadn't aired it yet. But he looked it over, and he again using his expertise and speculating where it could be, where it could have come from. In his opinion, it looked like because the way it was folded, it has the little nail holes in it and stuff. His opinion was that it was part of around the outside edges of a box to protect the box or hold it together. Could be. Some people were saying, oh, maybe that's from a roof, blew off from a hurricane or something like that. It was in the water, blew up on the beach.
And it could be awful. It's awful weather too, from being floating around and moving around, and you never know what it could be.
Yeah, it does look pretty old in my opinion. But again, how long ago did they use copper on a roof? I mean, it would have been,
or from an old building, or it could have been floating. Like I said, it could be just weathered.
Yeah.
Well, you got to remember, like everyone that was on a ship, they weren't carrying around Louis Vuitton leather handbags and stuff.
Yeah, true story.
Exactly.
Everything would be coming in a chest, a box, or a barrel, right?
Yep.
And any heavy equipment would come. It'd be reinforced with some type of metal, and which makes sense. The guy said, Carmen, I mean, he is the super expert on this stuff. Said, this would be reinforced in a box. Now, it's nice to dream and say, well, maybe it was a box of treasure. Hey, maybe it was.
Yep.
But I mean, every single person from, the British to sailing boats to there's so many different scenarios that could be. It's certainly
and you're in a shipping area too.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it could be anything.
Yeah. Jeff, the Awakened one makes an excellent comment, and it's Carmen was on the ball again with a bit of copper, and it's amazing. Carmen thinks it could date back to the 11th century. The 11th century is one of the dates that we tend to discuss here, because again, it's the height of Templarism, So the fact it could date back that far, and it could, does fit into so many time frames and so many narratives that have been built about the island.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was a pretty insightful.
And it goes back to shipwrecks and all the boats and the boats that did crash or sunk. They had stuff on them, and so it's not out of the realm to have old pieces of metal washed up on the beach, and it was clearly they just went. It was sitting on the rocks. They picked it out.
It wasn't deep underneath. It was actually laying right there on top.
Yeah, they weren't digging a hole up in the woods on the island. That would be a little bit of a different story. This one,
or could it have blown off of a building on the island onto the beach?
It's possible.
Could be something else.
Yeah, it's possible.
Could be anything.
I mean, I do kind of fall back on Carmen's expertise on it, but again, he admitted there's been a couple times that he was wrong, about something. He said not very often, but there's been a couple times where he got it wrong, and he admitted that on the show on Saturday. But so anyway, but interesting, piece for sure. It looks like somebody. Let's see, copper. Oh, this is Amy said copper mines are recorded. They can be traced to a particular area. So I don't know.
Yeah. Hard to say how far down they'll spend chasing that one down, but I think she also mentioned about copper sheeting was used on oak construction, and that's true. That's very true.
That is true.
Yep.
Yep.
Needs to be tested if they can. And again, I don't know that if that kind of stuff can.
There is a test you can do on it, but
okay. Yeah. Like I was thinking like the lead, but copper has been in use for 9,000 years. Let's see, that was Cat Fulton. Let's see, Tom Burns said, I think it washed out of the ground, shore erosion, and could have floated in attached to a piece of wood at some time. Yeah, it was definitely attached to a piece of wood. It looks like, because you see the holes in it, and again, I'll bring that picture back up.
Well, that side of the island they found it on was where all the old, we've proven that there's old ship wharfs, cribbing structures.
Sure.
And a lot of the stuff, they're pulling all the wood out of the swamp. Beyond a reasonable doubt, I think everyone can agree they're from boats, varying boats of different sorts. But it goes back to, did those originate from the island? Did they blow in from somewhere else? Were they crashed and wrecked there? Were they doing repairs? But
right. Yep. Let me pop this back so I'm not covering up John there. Carmen mentioned the impurities in it. Yes, he did. He definitely did. And that would be indication of being older if it did have those impurities, I would think. Let's see. Yeah, copper is expensive still today, and used in house sheathing is unlikely. Yeah. Not in today's world. You're right. I think you're right there. Let's see. I'm
with Linda's post. I doubt these coppers were spending the resource to find out where it's from. So
yeah, true. Yep. Craig Hammond over here says, hi Jeff, a former Uper, Iron River, now living in Lawton, Oklahoma. Wow. Here I am living in Pennsylvania, so there you go. Yeah, I like I said, I'm going back up, but let's see. Copper, I've been cap off of one of the piling of a dock.
Yes,
would have been a dock there.
Yeah, that's true.
Yep.
And Jeff, that was one of the viewers asked. That was found on Lot 4, correct?
Yes, it was found on the beach, along the beach there on Lot 4. Yes.
Yep.
That nail has a round head. Oh. Well, it does kind of look like it. Let me bring the picture back up. Yeah, and it's a round hole too. That would be indication of not being so old, wouldn't it? I don't know. Carmen did talk about the fact that it was crudely made. The bending and everything was pretty rough. They didn't spend a lot of time really making it really nice. It would have been, if it was on a box, it would have been a lower end. Like a regular Siemens box or something, not somebody that was had a lot of had the nicer stuff, I guess to say. Yeah. Oh my goodness, a lot of stuff. There's all this chat going by. I've already missed some.
Wow, no, I'm not. It's just a lot.
That's why I need your help, guys.
Yeah.
John, you asked about that. What you do is try clicking on one and see if it pops up.
Nope, nothing's happening.
Okay, well,
Tom Burns said it looks like a shingle nail, perhaps.
Yeah.
That's what I was just thinking that.
Or somebody said it looks like a pop rivet. That was Darlene. Yeah. Tom said shingle nail. So who knows? We'll find out. Hopefully, we'll get more information on it. We don't know if that's going to come up or not again, but hopefully, we'll get more information on it. But then in the that's a great shot at Marty, huh? Right in the middle of saying something. I just snapped that one. It got him at a bad moment there. But so we're going to stay in the research center. Now we're going to move over to when Marty was coming up with a new theory. He had always talked about this offset chamber. And like I said, when he shows that fist, this is exactly what he's talking about right here. Your sea level being down here someplace, and then this offset chamber being up above sea level. So these things do not any kind of treasure, anything stays up out of the water. Now, the interesting thing about this is his new theory, which I think is plausible. We'll talk about it here. Here's your box drains, or the finger drains that were in Smith's Cove that were found back, and they were covered with the coconut fiber and eel grass, right? Was that what eel grass?
Yep.
To filter out any dirt and stuff out of it. So that wasn't getting into the money pit, but it was going into a single chamber was the idea behind this. Marty's had time to think about it. Yeah, you're right. He's definitely had some time to think about this. So it goes into one chamber. Now, what he was doing here was he was drawing this picture, and I got the Prometheus artist rendition coming up here in a second. But he was showing this being your flood tunnel going from Smith's Cove all the way down to below the 90-foot stone in the money pit when they triggered this whole thing and flooded the money pit down there. But he was talking about it having a bend, really going around a rock or some kind of thing like that, a big boulder under there.
Mm-hmm.
There's no boulders around on Oak Island, right? Or in that whole area.
Yeah.
And he was talking about it having this hump in it and it causing an area where air would start to collect up here. And then all these lines over here, he was talking about every time they put a well down, they're pumping air down into any chamber or tunnel area down below, which we know there are some, right? C1 had one. They sent a diver down in there to look at it. So we know that there's chambers down there. Yep. So they're pumping all this air and stuff down into there, along with, the drill rig having the water. It has to use water for the sonic drill. So he was talking about this, how it would build up boulders. Pasha, who said that? Oh, that was Cat. Cat Fulton said boulders, right? So, and it was like this. So each time they put a drill and they would hit the flood tunnel or hit a chamber down there connected to the flood tunnel, they're making they're pushing air. Well, what's that air going to do? It's going to go up that line and it's going to go to its nearest collection point, which they were saying would be like this here. This is a little better than Marty's drawing on the whiteboard there, but you get the idea. So what they were thinking is, or what he was thinking is, that they came down and they drilled down, and for two of those drills, because they only moved over 2.5 feet from AB13 to A13, I think it was, and he thinks they pierced this. And as you keep putting more and more air, you're building pressure in this small area. So each time you add more and it goes up the flood tunnel into here, you're adding pressure to it. You pierce it finally. Now you got all that air and water, and you're going to they did have water. So this is what I was saying. I was thinking it was that somewhere in that offset chamber was what I think they were hitting and causing the same thing. But
someone said it's an air plunger on a drain.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Exactly right. So is that plausible? Yeah, it sure is. So it's not a bad idea. Now, what's cool about this also is that if that is the flood tunnel that they were hitting, they should be able to block it off, right?
He said it was like an air bubble on a level.
Huh?
He said it was like an air bubble on a level.
Yeah. So if they were hitting the flood tunnel, would they not be able to maybe to block it off now and keep the water from coming in?
Stick one of those big cans down it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that would do it. A 10-foot
That's the only way you could possibly do it.
Mm-hmm. Right. That's a great idea. You put a 10-foot can down there, you're going to block it off.
Yeah,
that's true.
If you hit it squarely, remember there was in this picture here, knowing that they probably had it lined. I don't know. They were showing it lined with rock, but they have hit rock when they've drilled down. They've had chunks of rock they pulled up out of there from some
Didn't
of the.
they show the finger drains at one time that they thought they found and it had rock like that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. It seems strange because they're pumping all that water in. If you're pumping water and air, and the theory is that it's pushing it back up.
Mm-hmm.
Would they not have something coming in the Smiths Cove area or up on the high side or some other signs? And they remember they already had put, dye in previous seasons. They were pumping dye and pressure and trying to see
Yes.
Yep.
if it was coming back. And I don't know, because when Marty drew his picture, he had from Smiths Cove and the line to, the money pit, and where they had, that air pocket, and there was the big depression. I think that collapse already closed off the, what was the flood tunnel.
Right.
But again, you're below sea level. It's going to have, there's going to be saturated water in the ground anyway.
Yep. Yeah. But a lot of people are saying Marty's theory is plausible. It is. It's definitely plausible. And again, unfortunately, we just don't know yet what they've hit. But they definitely hit some sort of a man-made, I think, in my opinion, something man-made down there, and it had to be some sort of a chamber that was holding air, and or a tunnel or something that was holding air, and now all that shot up out of there. Yeah, the void was 7 feet. That was Thor said that. The void was 7 feet.
You got to think, like the flood tunnel, it's not like today's that you would have had a drill rig and drill a hole through. Like a person had to dig and move material and crib it and stuff to get down there. So, it's going to have to be at least, I don't know, maybe you're a short person, but it's going to have to be at least, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 feet.
Yeah, it is. Right.
And there's going to be areas because you're going to have big rocks and stuff that you're going to have to dig around and, make it higher and lower. It's not going to be a uniform, perfect, just.
No, absolutely not. There's no way it would be. No way. And remember when Jeremy was out there a couple of weeks ago and he was showing that the new data from the seismic testing of the money pit, and he was showing those chambers. I mean, they were very irregular. So yeah, I mean, it makes absolute sense that, knowing that there's all that rock in Nova Scotia, or in that entire area up there, that, absolutely they're going to run in, and they're not, when they're digging a tunnel, they're not going to be able to move something that big. They're going around it.
Yep. Do we have any engineers that are watching this?
Probably.
Yes. Yes, we have a couple.
Yeah. Hugh was saying about blocking the flood tunnels and it probably is at this point, it may be impossible. As Linda was saying, because Rick and Marty did talk about that they couldn't, but that was before this, I think. So I don't know. I don't know. Can they now? I don't know. And does it matter at this point? I don't know. And again, I don't know if it matters anymore to be able to try to block it off. I don't know, John. I don't know if I can or not. I did that fine. Thing there. So
and Amy Mulligan is an engineer, so maybe she'll chime in for us and kind of walk us through that.
Oh, well, let's see.
Well, if you look at some of the tunnels in the pyramids, are quite large.
Yep.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah, definitely.
So, I mean,
so Amy said, I've been in tunnels that are quite wide and tall. Think more 2 people wide and over 6 feet tall for manpower usage. Yeah.
Wow. You got to be able to swing a pick and a shovel.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly right.
That's why these voids are typically 7 feet. In height. Always 7 feet. That's enough to wield a pick.
It is. It's always about 7 feet every time they come across one.
I would not make a good miner.
No, I'll call you again. I forgot. You and Jack are both. Jack's like 6'4" or 6'6" or something.
Yeah, I'm 6'8", so I look little on the TV, but not a good tunneler.
I think Jack's like that too. I remember I met Jack, and I remember when he got out of the chair there when I was leaving, I was like, and I'm 6 foot, right? Almost exactly 6 foot, and I'm like, wow, Jack is very tall. Oh my goodness.
Colin is on the track.
Yep. All right. So and again, so is that possible? It's plausible. We'll see what they come up with. Let's keep moving along here. So next we jump over to the swamp area. And this is where the guys are I got Gary and David and Peter Finetti, along with Michael John shows up over here eventually. You see how far down they are now. They were working over here in the last couple episodes, and now they're getting more. I wanted them to go the other direction or reach out farther. Now they're actually working their way back to the southeast corner direction as they're going along here. And they found again and some more pieces of wood, which is cool.
I don't handle so much wood.
Yeah,
that's like a going joke now. Oak Island wood.
Yeah, Oak Island wood, right? Yeah. So, more wood, and even Marty has done that. He says, "I want to quit finding more wood." So, they are too. The wood does tell a story, but again, this wood here that we've talked about with you guys before, that this wood here being washed up into the right there at the beach area of the swamp, knowing the road was not there for most of the island's life, all this stuff could just easily wash in from all the shipwrecks, all the different things that have happened in the area. They could be finding wood from multiple boats, multiple ships.
Did you notice last night in the show they showed something, and there was behind them was a ton of like branches, tree branches and tree trunks, and it was just
again the same thing. Stuff that has washed in from the hurricanes and storms and everything else. Yeah. It's just a tree trunk that came in. So I have a tendency to not get too excited about all these pieces of wood, because we don't know. They're not attached to anything. They're not telling us that they were part of, is there a ship in the swamp or not?
Yeah. I think when some people are mentioning, why are they down at that end of the swamp? Because you got to remember, on the stone pathway is more of an archaeological, like they're they're not in there with excavators or hand trolling or troweling and doing that. But the other end of the swamp, something you really don't see in the show. There's a roadway that goes on around the other side as they bring equipment and so forth.
Yep.
So I think that's a bit of a free for all as they were doing some digging there, but there's not as much excitement as we hoped this season.
Right. Yeah. And that's very true. Yeah. So let's see. Matt asks, I wonder if they moved down because they have reached out as far as they could. I think so. I think they have. He's reached out as far as he could, and he's dug down as far as he could, and they're simply just not finding anything more. They're not finding any metal. They're not finding any coins and things like that. So yeah, I think they had to continue to keep on moving down.
I think next season will be the season of the swamp. I think next season we'll see the Cofferdam. My vote anyway.
Yeah, I think so. And we're going to kind of allude to that here in just a few minutes too, as we go along. And this piece of wood he found, he stuck his finger in a hole, but if you see on this picture, it was a square hole, which is kind of cool. Could that be one of the pins? Would that be a piece of railing where they put one of those pins down through there that are kind of squared off? That pin that they found last week or a couple weeks ago, that part of it was squared. The bottom of it was rounded. The top part was squared off, and it looked about that size, didn't it? So,
and then they never talked about it again.
Right.
That was it.
Yeah. So at this point, they're starting to talk now about wrapping up things in the swamp. And this picture here, I showed, where they're still working. They were working down their way. Then Marty and Rick came out and they were talking about, okay, guys, we're going to kind of wrap up what's happening in the swamp. We're going to, start focusing all of our efforts on the money pit. But we know that they kept in a couple times during the show, they mentioned a couple weeks. So even though it seemed like, okay, right there, let's put the excavator away and let's get out of here and go do something else, that continued on. And then Colin shared a couple pictures with us that he found. They were talking about, remember they said that we're going to let the swamp fill back up with water, and we need that water. We need to use it because we're not allowed to use seawater for the wash table. Or for the wash table. thinking of the name of that thing. Is that right? The wash table? Is that what they call that? The machine that they use to wash all
Wash,
the
wash plant.
wash plant. Thank you. Wash
Yeah.
plant. So Colin shared a couple pictures that he had taken from his boat, and I'll bring those up now. This was one here, and this is a pump. Now, a pump that big is not trying to pump the water out to lower, to be able to, so they can go in. Yeah, thank you, Amy. Wash plant. They're not using this to, to pump it out so they can work in there. At this point of the season, they're pumping that water because they're using it. They're using that fresh water that comes from that freshwater source. That's that little stream you see always coming from the eye of the swamp area down towards this area of the swamp. That's that freshwater spring that's in there. And so they're going to use that, let it fill back up, and then use that water in the wash plant. And here's that picture of the pump working, doing its job down there that Colin got for us. I think we got another one of the wash plant itself. Now this is over in the Smith's Cove side, right?
Yep.
Okay.
You see the front end loader, so they go up the money and grab its material and bringing it down and dumping it. And running it through. Yeah, right
here. Yeah. They got a couple of tractors actually over there working.
Yeah.
So they're bringing the spoils down that they're pulling out with the case or the hammer grab. They're pulling all the spoils out, leaving them in a pile. Gary probably goes over and metal detects. They look for wood and samples of stuff, whatever, and then they haul it away. And
fresh swamp water sounds like an oxymoron.
Jeez, they came a long way from Jack hosing it down.
Yeah, I know, right?
But you can see the hose running along just below it on the roadway. You can see the hose running along there and running up to the plant. So
they're definitely pulling fresh water from somewhere there. But and then we got one more. I think there's one more picture of just the wash plant itself. There it is, right there.
Yep,
of it working. So it's definitely doing the trick. So anyway, pretty interesting there. And then we also, and we saw on the preview for next week, they talk about a significant, I'm trying to think of the actual wording. I know that Linda or Jan or somebody will remember what they said, but they were talking about the swamp. So we're going back to the swamp again. What's that? Oh, so it's something about they found in the swamp, something very significant, because you remember as they were wrapping up the talk there with Rick and Marty talking to the guys at the swamp, he had said that, he asked Billy Gerhardt, he said, have you reached the area where you found that piece of railing? Was that what it was, Dale? He asked me
you went to the railing.
Yeah. And he said, not yet, or we're there now, or something along those lines. So that's where, that if they're going to, they're going to continue that at least for next show. So next week, we should be able to see what this significant find is that they did find in the swamp. So we're not done with the swamp just yet. Hopefully it's more a significant piece of wood that we could really talk about next week. I'm hoping they kind of lead us to that. Oh, we just lost John. Okay.
Oh, no.
Yeah, hopefully he'll be back. There he is.
Ancient artifact.
Are you having some internet madness there, John, or what?
A little bit of internet madness tonight.
Jeff?
Oh, there it is. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Roberta Harrison said they used the word ancient artifact. Thank you. Yes. So
I love ancient artifacts.
Hopefully it's not just a piece of wood that Gary can stick his fingers through.
I hope it's like a bell.
A bell would be good.
That would be great.
That would be great. That might, because don't bells often from ships say what ship it was? I don't know, back in the old days.
They can have markings on them.
Yeah.
Sure.
It'd be cool if they found something like that.
Oh, Amy said, yes, that's right, Amy. You're right. He did say they're right on top of it now. So hopefully next week we'll find out what that was all about, right? Oh, that rings a bell.
Well, either say or they'll have little symbols like blacksmith marks. Yes. Guns have them. Tower of London was a gunsmith that I collect and specifically have their own mark and different marks for the dates. and you have to get a special, book that you look up the mark and you can tell what date and what the manufacturer was. So, that went with bells and other things that were used on ships as well. There would be a specific blacksmith mark, if it's at least if it's British.
You would think if they did sink a ship there would be a bell on it. You never know.
I think anything that would be salvageable would be taken no matter what.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But don't get me wrong, if you were able to definitively say it was this ship that's there, that shipwreck, I mean, that'd be like...
Yes.
But
it would absolutely blow everything apart right there on the spot.
But you're sinking a ship to destroy evidence, or you're burning a ship to destroy evidence. So you wouldn't want to leave anything left to be discovered, I would imagine.
Unless it was done in a hurry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, unless it was done in a hurry. So I let's see.
Someone says a part of a Mi'kmaq totem pole.
Mi'kmaq, yeah, I know. No, we don't want any more Mi'kmaq artifacts, please. I mean, we do.
It'd be kind of cool.
Oh no, that would be cool. Come on now.
Yeah, it would be.
Awesome.
I would love to see that.
But that would also
totem
shut
poles
down.
are more on the West Coast, not on the East Coast anymore.
Yeah. That would also shut down everything that they're doing right now. So yeah. Unfortunately, we don't want that to happen, do we? We want to be able to have them.
I love Matt's comment. Can we post Matt's comment? Matt's comment.
Yeah, let me. Let's see. I had a great moment in the show last night when the narrator referenced a theory I floated to Charles and Laird last year.
Yeah, that'd be interesting. It'd be interesting if he can type that theory in.
Yeah, what are we talking about here?
Yeah, come on. You can't kind of throw that out there without
an artifact in the middle of the money pit.
Wait a minute, Matt. You're messing with our minds, Matt. You can't be saying that.
Come on, Matt. I'm caling you out. I need to know what you think here.
Yeah, totems are Western.
Totems on West. Yeah. An artifact in the middle of the money pit. What could that artifact be?
Do we dare? I don't know. Do we dare to use the word Viking for an ancient find? Hopefully.
I do dare.
Yep. Let's see.
They're all sitting here waiting for the comment.
Templar Bank of the Americas. You could be right, Matt.
No. I mean, that's again the depository theory is not far off. Like again, it ties in together with how did it originate? Maybe it was an ancient mine, maybe it's not. But regardless, generational. I mean, John, you always say it. The information is getting passed down.
Yep.
Information times right up to again the battles between the French and the British, and even which I think Marty's quite interested in financial backing in the American Civil War.
Sure.
Matt said to read the next comment.
It's what?
Matt said to read the next comment.
I don't know, where is this at?
Oh, did I miss it?
I think it's up.
I like the bacon, the bacon bank.
The Bacon Bank ATM, Francis Bacon.
You need to get the PIN number to shut off the flood tunnel to get your deposit.
There's a code. Got to punch in the code.
I love that.
That's what's wrong. Oh my gosh, guys, come on. Yeah, you got to punch in the code. Very true. The wide variety of dates, and they do definitely have a wide variety of dates.
Then you ask, what strings this all together? What organization strings it all together? Now, one of the organizations that cuts across all boundaries, all countries and nationalities is the Masons. I mean, they're from everywhere. So again, you have to look at what organization would cut or lineage of thought or line of thought that would cut across all lines, all nationalities, everything. And it would have to be an organization like that.
Yeah. Everything from, digging a hole, whatever the hole was, 165 feet in the ground, which is a fact. I mean, they found artifacts and bones and stuff. The stone pathway and all the reinforcement. I mean, this stuff would have taken years, like seasons and seasons of work. Because even the Oak Island guys, I mean, they got to stop in the wintertime. It freezes. It's wintertime and all that stuff, right? So people would have had to have been operating outside of hurricane season. Because again, big wooden ships, you wouldn't want to be sitting in Mahone Bay anchored on a wooden ship in a hurricane.
Right. Yeah. Oh, who said this? Don't say it. It was Darlene. Darlene Barkhouse Dogie said, I actually was thinking the paddles that Gary found could be the wings of the eagle on the totem pole. Excuse me. Pandora's box. Oh, for sure. BC
Rosicrucian.
St. Jean said Rosicrucian.
Same line of thought, right? Same line of thought.
Yep.
Templar, Rosicrucian.
Yep.
Cistercian, Mason, Freemason.
Yep.
The Templars were in Atlantic Canada beyond a reasonable doubt. There's a lot of data information that's.
Yeah.
And then of course, our friend Court will tell you Jacobite masonry was involved with Oak Island too.
Yep.
And that also involved the Stewarts. So there's so much there that could be associated with Oak Island.
Wow. What was this? Our robot was talking about, yes, generational. The ship we need to find is the HMS Stirling Castle, one of the ships of the Royal Navy used for deception. I don't know anything about that particular ship.
No.
Yep. So, all right. Well, here comes kind of the fun part where we get to the war room and we see a gentleman show up in the war room.
Yes.
And this was the last part of the show. We're going to talk about this, and then we're going to kind of take this as our round table, so to speak, a little bit, and talk about this a little bit more in depth. And this was where we had this gentleman, and I think we're going to try to see if we can't get him on the show at some point with us now that he has been in the war room. And so you see the guys all here, and they're talking with this gentleman right here, Scott Clark, an Oak Island researcher.
Yep.
Now, Scott Clark, as it was said at the beginning of the War Room show, is a Oak Island researcher and a 33rd degree Freemason from Toronto. And he's there to give his theory of the silver that could be on Oak Island, and that it could be from William Phipps and his discovery of the Concepcion. Now, go ahead.
What do they mean by a 33 degree Mason? What?
It's an emeritus. It's an emeritus status. After the 32nd, and you serve as the master, of your lodge, the head of your lodge. It's an emeritus status. It's means you've kind of gone through and you served the worship master, and boom, now you're a 33rd degree. So it's a very prestigious degree. I'll leave it at that without giving anything away.
Yep. No, that's very cool.
Yeah. So that means, you've really worked your butt off to get up through the ranks, and your integrity and everything else to get to that point. So,
it's a rank that's not earned; it's given.
Right. There you go.
By the lodge.
Thank you.
So.
Yep. So he came on. Scott had has a very, very interesting theory. We'll kind of talk about the theory a little bit, and then we're going to kind of maybe, talk about it a little bit more in depth and kind of do like a IDK little roundtable here about it, because Court, like I said, Court shared some information with us, and Court, if we get it wrong, please call in so we can get it right. But so the thing that he was talking about now, William Phipps is somebody that he brought up, and I think I've got this gentleman right here. Now William Phipps, Linda put up a little note, or I'm sorry, Tom put up a little note here. The 33rd degree is a supreme honor bestowed only on those who have demonstrated outstanding service to the brotherhood, as well as professional and personal accomplishments.
Yes.
Thank you.
But in order to get that degree, you have to have been through the 32nd degree, which usually is
head
of the lodge. So it's almost like a lifetime achievement.
Yep. Yeah. So Jan said her uncle was a 33rd degree, and she has the Scottish in Scottish Rite, and she has the certificate. She said it's beautiful.
Wow.
Yeah. So this particular theory, where we talk about William Phipps, in his recovery of the Concepcion silver. Now, according to some of what I read, the Concepcion had some silver, and it had mostly silver, but it also had some gold and jewelry and stuff like that. The Concepcion was built in 1620. This is all notes that Jan got for us in the synopsis from the show that we said on the show. Built in the 1620, and I have to read this. I'm sorry, but I'll forgive me while I look down to read this. Built in 1620 and was a 600-ton galleon and the premier ship in the Spanish fleet that was there to carry the plundered riches back to Spain from the New World. And they were getting all this, I think, from like the Incas or the Mayans, or I don't know. There was a lot of that going on down there when they were basically plundering all their stuff. In 1641, the Concepcion was sunk during a massive hurricane while carrying more than 100 tons of gold and silver off the coast of the Dominican Republic, which they used to call back then Hispaniola.
Yes.
Yeah, Hispaniola. Hispaniola. The lives of more than 300 crew were lost, as well as the treasure. 4 decades later, Captain William Phipps began began to on a salvage mission to find the Concepcion, and this was now it said right here was financed by British royalty. Now this is where we got into a discussion a little bit with Court Lindahl, because we were speculating, okay, who is this Spanish who was this royalty that British royalty that he was dealing with? And Court came right out and said, well, that has to be King James II.
That's who it was.
Because of the time frame. Now, go ahead, John.
It's interesting. During the time the ship was lost in Mahone Bay, it was under the reign of James II. So James would have had interest in whatever was on that ship. Now, and it was burned, was it not, Jeff?
Well, yeah, and that's the thing. There's been speculation that there was a ship burned. That was Fred Nolan's.
No, I mean in Mahone Bay wasn't this ship that came up in the Mahone Bay also?
They scuttled the ship and burned it.
They scuttled the ship and burned it.
Yeah,
and the one in the swamp was thought to be burned. Right. Why are we burning ships? Not one now, but two.
Well, I mean, why would you burn a ship? To get rid of evidence, right?
To get rid of evidence.
And why would you want to get rid of evidence?
Because you're hiding something.
Exactly. You know what?
Yeah, you're hiding something. And in this
I'm
case,
sorry, Mr. King, but we lost that ship at sea.
Well, what's interesting is the one ship could have been for James II. Maybe, James II in 1688, I believe, when Court and I were talking, was on his way, out of the reign of power and headed to France. Okay. And so why he's still kind of in command, a ship with a retirement fund, so to speak, in Mahone Bay. But it doesn't preclude that something else happened in Oak Island with a ship that was also burned. And now you have two possible burned ships within miles of each other.
Yep.
Within a close time period, probably to each other, because they've pulled out wood from the swamp that is commensurate with the age of exploration, which is that's 1450 to 1650 time period, give or take. So you're really close. You're really close in there. And why burn the ships?
Exactly.
That still hasn't been explained.
Yeah, I know. Now it talks a little bit further here. It says Phillips used indigenous free divers to salvage the galleon. Over 3,400 tons, or in British money, 205,000 pounds of treasure was brought back to England, and which today would have valued about 50 million in U.S. currency. Phipps received 11,000 pounds and was knighted by King James II. Okay.
Again, it's a payoff.
Yes. The payoff. Now that was the first trip over.
Yes.
Okay. So the second trip, he was trying to get more funding. He was trying to get more funding to go back and continue this. Now, this is all about the time 1687, 1688.
8.
What happened with King James II?
Well, he fled to France eventually.
Yeah. He
like I was
fell out
talking
of
about
power.
earlier. Yes.
So he exiled in 1688 out
Yes.
of England to France. Now, this is where it kind of gets out. Let me continue with the synopsis a little bit first before we get too much deep into that. Captain Andrew Belcher became Alcher. Now, remember this name, Andrew Belcher, became the assistant of Sir William Phipps, and was also the one who helped in the relationship between the American colonists and the indigenous tribes. Belcher also helped Phipps. I keep wanting to put an L in there. Phipps with the other expeditions to salvage the treasure of the Concepcion. In September of 1687, Phipps again returned to the salvage to salvage the treasure, only to return to England with only 10,000 pounds. At that point, Scott then presents a letter from 1688 that shows that Captain Belcher was caught with one of Phipps' ships in Mahone Bay area.
And that's the one I was referring. I jumped the gun a little bit, but that's the one I was referring to.
And that ship was found burned in Port Labar,
yes,
which is very close to Oak Island. Scott believes that Belcher was transporting treasure from the Concepcion to Nova Scotia. Scott then presented the team with a map from 1701 entitled The English Empire in America, and shows the treasure from the Concepcion. Now, we'll get to that here in just a second. Matter of fact, I'll do it right now. So here's some more information that he had about him, Phipps, and his working with Belcher. Now, Belcher is another and if you folks, once this is a thing I really enjoy about these people coming with their theories, because it gives you some more information that you can then go and look up yourselves, because a lot of this is out there. But I had no idea about these people at all. I didn't personally, but John, you probably did, and we know that Court did. Of course. Because of all the research that he does. But I mean, this really gets really deep, and the ties that Court puts together with all these people is what makes it so. Here's a picture of Phipps. And then let's see, during the second expedition, this is where he said the treasure was brought back to England, was only valued at 10,000 pounds, was about 2.4 million.
That seems light for a second expedition, doesn't it?
Yeah, very, very much so. So, I mean, and that's where we go to that little talk about now, if Belcher was found with one of the ships of Phipps' ships up there in Nova Scotia, that other ship went to England with only 10,000 pounds worth of silver and gold.
And there's no tracking devices. There's no GPS at this point.
Oh. And the ship was burned up in Nova Scotia.
Yeah.
Well, and Jeff, this is very interesting. What's the name of the ship here?
Yeah, Andrew Belcher, master of the ship Swan.
The Swan. Cygnus.
Yeah. Yeah. So who else has talked about that?
Well, it's certainly a reference to our friend Petter and Shakespeare and the Swan of Avon. The reference is there. Why would you name the ship the Swan unless
that
you're
just seems like an odd name for a ship.
It's just it is. So I'm just thinking it's a reference. It's kind of a shout out. And there's Cygnus, the Swan.
The Swan. And that is seen, and again, it was Petter Amundsen was talking about this, right? Yeah.
Well, that's
so another one of those little weird oddities, right?
But it's supposed to be the star map that was supposed to lead to Nolan's Cross, which is a representation of Cygnus and Oak Island, and then you have the ship named the Swan. It's just a really odd name to name a ship.
It is. Does it mean anything for sure?
Maybe.
It's
just an odd name for a ship.
Right. It truly is.
Unless it's referencing something.
Yeah, exactly. So But now so you got a ship. One ship goes the second recovery of the treasure from the Concepcion. One ship heads up there and goes to England with 11,000 pounds and drops it off now it was 1688. Let's see, Captain Belcher was caught. Okay, so 1687, 1688, which is when we don't know if it was before or after King James II was exiled. But all this stuff is happening all at the same time, which is really weird. Okay, so he's exiled into France. And one of the people that exiled him into France was and this is from Court was telling me about this, was Debody, a gentleman by the name of Debody, who Court said was the Saint Castine. He was also the Baron of Acadia.
Yeah, he was the governor of Arcadia. Yeah. And that's where the ship went. The ship came to Mahone Bay, which is part of Arcadia during that time.
Yeah.
So it's the king's money. Is that what we're saying?
But now here's one of the questions. And Colin, I don't know was France was in charge of Nova Scotia basically 1688. Do you guys know? I think France was in control at that time, I believe.
She was switching power in the early days. It was the French. I don't know what year. I don't know what year it was though.
Yeah.
I think it was until the mid 1700s.
Where it went back to England, because they went back and forth a few times.
Yeah.
But so if it's under French control at that time, and King James II left England and was helped into France. And France is in control of Nova Scotia. And this gentleman by the name of Debody, who, by the way, has a town named after him in Castine, Maine, which Maine is the first state of the United States that's right there south of Nova Scotia.
Mm-hmm.
And he's also a knight involved in the Knights of Malta.
And the Knights of
Malta, go ahead.
The Knights of Malta were the Vatican chosen after the dissolution of the Templars. So it's the Knights Hospitaller and the Knights of Malta. So again, the symbolism would be the same. The symbolism at this point is usurped by the Knights of Malta, the Templar symbolism. But it does explain why the symbolism is very similar, does it not?
Yeah.
Because you're repurposing the symbolism. You're claiming the symbolism because the Vatican really didn't like what the Templars were preaching, or what they had discovered. They didn't like the whole ascended master thing, the God within theory, the I am principle. It didn't wash well with the Vatican at all, because it was a challenge to power. Right. So the Knights of Malta now evolved in this. So it's you can see how it's all related. Every puzzle piece is related.
It really truly is. And one of the things that, and I know, and again, some of the research I was doing on this today, trying to get prepared for tonight, because these names are popping up and I'm just like, who are these people? So I had to start looking. I know somebody said, Scott Clark, I wish you were here. I do too. He could help us through this a little bit. Actually I'd like to get him and Court together. I think that would be an interesting, maybe we might have to work on that. It says here in the notes that I looked up today that on May 14th, 1692, Phipps arrives in Boston. He brought with him a charter ending the 1864 English law banning colonies from self-government. Under this new charter, the legislature was set up to the judicial system until October. However, on May 27th, deciding matters too serious to wait until October. He became very influential. Phipps did in Boston and all around that area. He became very influential. And he had a lot of money. Seemed he was very wealthy, or got very wealthy. Where did he get? I wonder where he got all of his wealth from. That's very interesting too.
Interesting.
If all the money that he got off the Concepcion went back to England, I mean,
But did it all go back to England?
no,
That's
I don't think so.
I don't think it did.
I don't
So
think
does James II, working through his connections in France, eventually get the money back that is in Mahone Bay on a ship waiting for him as a retirement fund? And then is there any more ciphered off that same wreckage on Oak Island and hidden, which wouldn't even be known to James II? Now that's the question.
Yeah.
It's just kind of interesting because the ships are destroyed in the same way.
Right.
And you're hiding evidence because you don't want someone to show up and claim literally millions of dollars in gold and silver.
Right.
I'm just looking on it. I sent you a link there, but there's the Nova Scotia website for anyone that's of interest. They actually have a shipwreck database that goes back from the 1500s to the late 1990s. It is unbelievable how many, and this is only what's recorded. I'm sure purposely hidden and snuck through pirate ships being sunk wouldn't.
Right.
But it is incredible. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of ships are wrecked and burned and stuff on the coast of the province. I think it kind of helps put things in perspective a little bit.
Sable Island has tons of them.
Oh,
Colin, were they all burned in the same way that the ships were?
No. This kind of goes and shows if you can kind of pick your slot of years and says the ship, and it kind of goes in the details of the ship and if it was wrecked and
the 1500s, the 1600s.
Like when you go into like 1850s and in the mid 1800s, when you see a lot more traffic and stuff in the area, I mean, there's a lot of.
It's an interesting database.
Yeah,
it is.
Wow. It sure is.
So, but it just again goes to show how much stuff is in the waters and around there. And
right. Let me see if I can.
It's a dangerous area.
Yeah. Let's see if I can.
Well, you've discussed it. Trying to navigate the Oak Island, you have to know your shallows and your depths. Yeah. Otherwise, you can easily run aground or even sink your boat.
Yeah.
You would definitely have to have a working knowledge of the navigation around the island for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. I just put those links up in chat on both sides, so you guys can check that out if you like. I mean, oh my goodness, yeah, it's the Marine Heritage Database.
Wow.
Find a wreck on the rocks. So yeah. Oh, Wanda says I love that. So she's already been there. But yeah, check that out. That's pretty wild. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah,
we have a lot going on in the chat right now, Jeff. A lot going on in the chat.
I know. Please help me with this.
Amy Mulligan says, if James II was hiring Phipps to secret money for him, then he gave him a cut. Well, the cut was the 11,000, right? And the night ship did he not receive a night ship? So that's his payoff, because once you're knighted, you get you get land, you get a certain amount of rights. Yeah. You have a whole plethora of rights and privileges that you would get as a knight,
because
so
he didn't come from nobility, right? He kind
of
average Joe made himself into nobility through.
And what's interesting is he was knighted prior to James II leaving. It's like one of his swan song type of, no pun intended, swan song type of things. So he knighted him real quick, and then the swan shows up in Mahone Bay. It's truly a swan song. Especially if you're a Led Zeppelin fan like myself.
Yeah, it says right here. I did look this up, but this was from I don't have the name of the site here, but it's written by Brendan Dignam. And it talks about Phipps. Says historical accounts, including Cotton Mather's biography, traditionally viewed as Phipps' upbringing was as socially disadvantaged. There's now evidence that his family was moderately prosperous. Phipps' father co-owned operating a trading post plantation involved in the fur trade and weapons between the local Wabanaki Indians and the English settlers. Phipps was the youngest of 14 children.
Wow.
Yeah. Let's see, former education, rural Maine. He ended up in early adulthood. He came to Boston as a ship's carpenter. Okay. And after a 4-year apprenticeship near his home, he then married Mary Spencer Hall in 1673, the widow of the Boston merchant John Hall. Interesting little sidebar on her.
Interesting.
Mary Spencer Hall was actually arrested for being a witch.
Jeez.
She was in 1692. This is what I found today. She was arrested in 1692 for witchcraft.
Wow.
That's kind of, and he was very instrumental. Phipps was in stopping all. Or was it Belcher? I thought it was one of them was instrumental in stopping all of the witchcraft, the witch trials. The witch trials were just going crazy, and so they stopped. They finally put an end to all that stuff because people were being accused. Obviously that whole thing just went nuts there. But anyway, this something I found as I was reading. I'm like, witch trials. Wow. That's actually what Brendan Dignam was actually talking about. Salem witch trials in the history and literature of the undergraduate course, University of Virginia, spring. Yeah. So yeah, interesting little tidbit on
very interesting
on him.
We got a really good comment here, Jeff. I'm not sure we can highlight it. With Phipps received a generous reward for his recovery. There it is. Of the Concepcion treasure. He was called the New England Knight, and the legend is that James II knighted him. And yet I could not find any official record of his knighthood. I believe it was an honorary knighthood because he was not eligible for knighthood, being born in and a native of America. So that
is from James McQuiston. Thank you, James.
Hey, James. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great point.
That's interesting. So it would no no official record of his knighthood. Interesting. Wow. But yeah. So and then I was looking into the whole Captain Anthony Belcher and looking into him a little bit, and then finding that his son, who got into shipping once his father, Captain Andrew Belcher, got into shipping. However, he soon became one of the wealthiest men in New England, and could now afford to send his son to Harvard and all of that. And then he ended up going on to doing a bunch of things as well. Jonathan did. It's just interesting that this whole, and I think that, how Court was, and you'd be better at tying this together than I would with what Court was saying about the whole Knights of Malta and the Freemasons. Was it how was he? I'm trying to. I didn't get all the notes, and we were going through some of it so quickly.
No. There's also such association with the Knights of Malta, eventually going into a lot of the Freemason symbolism, and Court was talking about Jacobite Freemasonry earlier, and how there was the whole line, and then he went into Admiral Anson and his association with North Carolina and so forth and so on, and so Court had kind of established a line of a lineage of connection between the whole thing. Rather complicated, but it is
complicated, but they're all connected.
They're all connected,
and they are all connected back to James II.
All connected back to James II.
And yet, here's a ship that ends up, one of Phipps's ships ends up in Mahone Bay.
Well, the timing is what's interesting.
Yes,
because it's 1688, 1687, and that's the time that James the II is being deposed in England.
Yeah.
And the supposed knighthood happening at the same time. So it's just interesting that all these kind of things coincide.
Right.
And it shows me that the swan that did show up in Mahone Bay was by no coincidence.
And the timeline for all their carbon dating, the wood and everything is all right in that bracket of, but the amount of activity that would have been going on in the late 1600s to early 1700s there was
much more. You
incredible.
couldn't really hide. Yeah, you couldn't hide anything.
Yep. One of the interesting things I want to get back to talking about what Scott was talking about is that Scott Clark, when he was in the war room, was that some of the maps he was talking about. Now here's one here. Whoops, I got the wrong screen up there. Let me stop sharing and get the right one. Sorry about that. Wasn't looking at the screen there. Let's see. There we go. Okay, this one here is one of the maps that he had up. Down here by Cuba, and this is where the Concepcion went down. He had down here, and he marked us out and said, I think it was basically the Phipps. It talks about Phipps down here and the rack. And talking about silver. So this is what he was saying, that this circle right here that was marked on this map for no apparent reason, because it doesn't mark an island or anything like that. Here's the Dominican Republic and Hispaniola. But so it points out, he's saying this points that this is where the Concepcion went down. Right? And then you get up here further up into, the Nova Scotia area. And now it's looking at this pot right here, which this is, according to what Scott Clark was saying, that you have your Nova Scotia, and this being Mahone Bay and basically saying, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Which means silver?
Which means silver.
Silver. So why would that be on there? And Jack had pointed out in the war room, Jack had said something about Gold River. And I mean, that would be the optimum thing to talk about right there, because, the Gold River is coming right, or the river or something. It would be talking about that. It wouldn't necessarily be talking about, the silver. Isn't Port Royal Halifax? I don't think so. Is it?
No.
Somebody asked that question. And I was bringing that up. So here's a little bit better look at it right here. So yeah. So Sir William Phipps plate rack, and it's showing that circle right there. Okay, that's down there by Hispaniola. Okay, and then there is Port Royal, and there is that La Plata.
Yeah.
That little circle right there. Now he's speculating that was Oak Island. And then there's a picture of the two maps side by side. And if you kind of follow the coastline, that you have the one inlet there around, which is Mahone Bay right here, correct? Okay, and you got Halifax. And now there's a lot of little islands. Now this island would actually be over here if it was marked correctly. I think it'd actually be like over here off the L, because Oak Island is way in there. It's real close to the shoreline, obviously, with the causeway.
Because when you go north of Halifax and go up the coast, it's exceptionally rugged. Like, you'll notice there's a lot of draws to, because it's really the Mahone Bay and Lunenburg, Halifax Harbor. But once you pass Halifax Harbor, you're really not till you get up around by Canso and Guysborough. There's Shedabupto Bay, which is a fairly a very sheltered bay, a lot of fishing villages and everything there. That's why I spent a good portion of my life in Guysborough, but the rest of that coast, boy, I'll tell you, she is rough as rough can be coming down there.
Wow.
So as far as people landing and coming into, there's only a very select group of ports you're going to make, and that's, again, Halifax, which would be very heavily traversed. Of course, the French, the British, and there'd be a lot of, if you were going in there, you were going to get seen, you're going to get checked, you're going to get, you're going to get dealt with.
Right.
But further down the coast, which is not that far, in a modern sailboat, like I would sail from the Halifax Harbor inside the basin. It would take me about 10 hours on a modern sailboat. It'd take me about 10 hours to sail that from there to down to Chester, Mahone Bay. So,
that long?
Yeah, it's about 100. It's about 100 kilometers. So,
wow. Yeah, 10 hours. Really?
Yeah. So pretty interesting that why would he mark that out? I mean, that was the big question. that Scott Clark was bringing to the table was, why would he talk about show where the Concepcion was? We know that ship was found. Belcher had a ship that was, showed up in Nova Scotia and was burned at Port La Barre. Am I saying that correctly? La Bare, La Barre,
Bear.
La Barre.
The bear.
And then he has all of a sudden the silver marked out right there on a little circle island right there. He's got it marked out on the map. Now, this map was made by Herman Moll. And that's a whole nother story. If you look into the whole thing with Herman Moll and the maps that he had created a lot of different maps. He was a cartographer and all of that. But I mean, what was his tie in with all of this? Let's see. I don't know if he talked about it. It says Scott believes that Belcher was transporting treasure from the Concepcion to Nova Scotia. Scott then presented the team with a map from 1701 entitled English Empire in America, and shows the treasure from the Concepcion in the area of Oak Island. The map, which was created by Herman Moll, was published in 1688. Another tie into that same year.
Certainly not a very secret map if you're going to put the silver right.
I know.
It's kind of crazy, but
yeah, right where it's not right where Oak Island would be, but darn close. I mean, if you look at that, and then the one big inlet in the whole side of here in his map that he created, and what you got right there is Mahone Bay, the one big inlet you got, or bay, or right there. So, and then a small one just north of it right here. So, I mean, it does look like it would be Mahone Bay to me. So, but this Herman Moll, he's another one to look into. But again, 1688, same time frame that was going on with all this. The whole time with the ship was going up there. They were looking at 1687 and 1688 for the Concepcion and taking all this stuff off of it. But again, we look at the same kind of thing with money, and how many times have we now started this whole look into the Spanish ships that were coming from South America, Inca, Mayan, and bringing all this plundered gold and silver and whatnot from down there and heading towards Spain. Some of them getting turned away because of hurricanes and big storms at sea. And is it possible? Now, we were talking about this also. In your opinion, what would you have Oak Island if I guess this is kind of one of those little rabbit holes that we could kind of go down. But would these guys have had the time in 1687, 1688 to dig the money pit and do all the flood tunnels and do all of this stuff?
Had to be pre-existing.
Yeah, everything's predated between what was Spooner saying. Even the road was, talking 1400s, I believe.
Mm-hmm. And then the wood, 1220 for the wood, right?
Yeah, that piece of wood that's on the north side. Yes, the other part of the road. Yes, you're right, Colin. On the north side of Nolan's Peninsula, that big stone square platform area, he found a piece of wood that was in between some rocks there. It was dated at 1220. So you go back. I mean, who would have bothered building that stone platform, that stone area, in 1220?
But we know, just archaeologically speaking, the artifacts that they've pulled up, that the 1500s, 1400s, 1220. Maybe Cameron's indicating 1100, but we know 1220 is an exact date. We know that's there's no negotiating that date.
Right.
So if 1220 is correct, and then that's the earliest piece, of data that we have. So you kind of use that as a starting point, which again, hide the Templarism.
Right. So so if the Templars or the Portuguese, somebody with the skills by which to do this and the time, and again, we talked about this whole thing. If this was happening in I'm going to say modern times, which I'm talking the mid 1600s into the 1700s, everybody's going to see you doing this. There's people around that are going to see you.
They're
What are these
colonizing at
guys
this
doing
point.
over there doing all this digging on Oak Island?
They're colonizing at this point. I mean, you have to it has to be done in secret. It has to be done before there's a lot of traffic in the area. Has to.
But you'd have to be well funded. You'd have to have the technology. You'd have to have the skills to be able to navigate to and from there repeatedly.
Yes.
Again, so there's very, very few
groups. The people.
Yeah, there's very few groups that would at that stage that would have the money and the technology and the navigational abilities to make it there and from season after season.
Yes.
Because it would have been very difficult to winter there. There's a lot of challenges to digging a hole on an island in Nova Scotia.
Right. And not be seen doing
it.
Yeah. Well, you have the Cistercians kicking around. You have the Templars kicking around. Yeah. You have the Masons kicking around. Speculative Freemasonry, supposedly, founded by Francis Bacon. But you would have to have money. Templars, there's Templars, Colin. You would have to have money to do it. And if speculative Freemasonry was actually, something that Francis Bacon didn't find, as alleged, the Crown would be funding that.
Yeah.
Elizabeth I, and she would have the resources. And we know if we go back to Templars that underneath Jerusalem there are all sorts of Templar tunnels and all sorts of Templar graffiti all over the place. Yeah. The Templars, dug all around Jerusalem, miles of tunnels, and that's been reported.
Because the Vikings going back to 1200, it's facts. I mean, there were Viking settlements in Newfoundland. Nova Scotia certainly wasn't a big known for Viking spot, but there were clearly Viking vessels would have come along this coast, and I think that's where you'll see, that wood that found in the swamp, a couple of really, really old pieces are dating from the Viking era. So it's hard to say, because I've heard rumors that the guys were in Newfoundland filming this last summer as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm very curious to see if the swamp, the big artifact you're going to find in the swamp, is going to be Viking related, and hence they're going to make the connection to Newfoundland to the old Viking settlements that are there.
You could be right. Yeah. And there's when you look at some of the dates.
But does that have anything to do with the deposit and treasure and digging a hole? I definitely don't think that the Vikings would have been digging a hole.
But there is a connection between the Vikings and the Templars through the Flemish.
Well,
there were several.
That's right. So there would have been information passed along, because again, those guys would have been having their navigational skills. Correct. And is there land there? They would have been trading with and connecting with the native communities. In this particular case, the Mi'kmaq here in Nova Scotia and in Newfoundland. I mean, those are historical facts that they were dealing with them. Mm-hmm. And the English. We all know that the Vikings and the English were clashing and dealing with each other, and there were a lot of workings with each other. Like there were some commonalities between the Vikings and the English there, which again ties into that time frame as the Templars are rolling into, England and Scotland. The Vikings have already been traversing across to the New World, and they would be probably IDing them spots. Where are the hot spots? Where do you go? Where are the native communities that are friendly? Who's going to help, provide you water and food and stuff when you land? Because there's a lot of area you can land in Nova Scotia, and there's nothing. Like there's, and Newfoundland, there's a lot of nothing.
And having done some Indian, Native American, First Nation research this past summer, a lot of those trade routes and trading communities were already established in the nations themselves over here in North America.
That's right.
So then you would have an outpost. So Europeans or whoever was coming over would hit those outposts and trade with the native populations. The native population had extensive trade routes with one another. And when I did the research, I was shocked to see that those trade routes were well in existence, and they were complicated.
And I think these were well developed. The Gull River connection, because again, it's hard. Like again, I'm hopefully, Jeff, you make it in the summer. When you go through Western Shore and get in there, there is a marina, and yes, you can get boats. It is really crazy to get in there. So they would have had to anchor further out.
Mm-hmm.
But again, being a trading post as you're coming along the coast and saying, okay, guys, where do we go to get some food, some water and all the different supplies that we're going to need? Hey, listen, there's a community in this particular area. Here's where you go. Here's where you land your ship. And that would have happened over year after year after year. And as they keep coming. So again, this is, I think, there you get the Viking connection. Why was Oak Island in that particular area so drawn to? And it would just been handed down after generation. Now, who started the dig and who started the operation? That's to be seen.
Yeah, that's truly the big question, is who started all of it? Because we've, like you guys just talked about, it's very possible that over the years, many people have utilized the island for different purposes, but some of them may be the same purposes. And that knowledge being passed from culture to culture, or and it was from the Vikings to the Templars. Now the Templars, we know, had ties all over the place with all these different peoples. And so, I mean, is it I think it was, I think back in that day, that might have been more well known than we ever realized by certain groups of individuals. So they knew that they could go there, and it was a spot, it was a place to go. And if you needed to hide something, or
well, we know in the Icelanders, we know a man by the name of Ari the Wise did a lot of documentation of New World travels, with those Viking Norse routes, and that was during the time of the Templars, when he was documenting the voyages, and he writes about it. So we know he was also sharing information, and information was being disseminated through the different, just through trade. I mean, Joseph Campbell calls it diffusion. Just, it's in either independent origination or diffusion. In this case, the knowledge was being diffused and traded just like goods and services.
That's right.
Yep. I'm telling you, some really, really interesting stuff. And again, folks, this information, a lot of this is out there, but I think that, to say that Scott, Scott Clark didn't come. I mean, you've seen the look on everybody's face as he's explaining this stuff in the war room, and it's because this is very plausible.
Yes,
it truly is. But you look at the fact that, again, it like you guys were just talking about, how would they have known about this? How would Phipps have known about this? But they're all connected. They're all right there in that area. It's just, and we're gonna have to do, I think, at some point, John, we're gonna have to get Colin and Cortland all up here, and really just, I mean, this is the information that I think we could really dig deeper and deeper and deeper into this and find.
You guys could do numerous shows on this.
Oh, I know, truly, it could.
There's so much.
There's so much to it. Oh my goodness, who
is that James? Okay, James, I see it. Go
ahead.
Get
James involved in this too. Why not? I mean, I got so much info here. I'm blocking you guys, but between 1622 and 1630, William Alexander sent 17 known ships to Nova Scotia. He had 34 knights baronet. By 1632, invested in comparative 18 million in the Port Royal settlement, which stood from 1629 to 1632. They were sold out by Charles I. All petitions to get their land back into the 1800. William's son, William Jr. and Anthony were the first recorded non-operative maintenances in the area. William Jr. was given rights to all fur trading in Nova Scotia after they left. French explorer, and it goes. He's got a lot more there too. But that's something, James. We're gonna have to. The knowledge that you have on all this is vast as well.
But that's also connected.
This is a great IDK. Yeah, this is gonna have to turn into an IDK. I'm afraid, because we're about out of time for tonight anyway. So.
And Charles I, of course, father of James II.
Yep.
So it kind of all connects.
And died penny. That was Judy Rudabush has chimed in. I put a couple of her comments up, unfortunately, on the Facebook side or on the
we got a lot of comments. Oh my God.
StreamYard. It doesn't show the names on there, but yeah, Judy has put in some good comments here as well. And so you see, like Colin had said earlier, you can talk about all who've been there, all who've come and gone and maybe dropped something off, maybe picked something up. But who started it all? That's the question. And that's the question that they're trying to solve to this day. Who started it?
Is there a common thread?
This whole thing. There's a common thread. There is.
There is a common thread. What common thread would be kind of sewing this whole thing up through all the generations? That's the question.
Right. To me, it's the Templars moving into the different, the evolution of the Templars going forward.
Yes.
What do you think? The Knights of Christ, the Malta Knights of Malta. I mean, the
Order of Christ, Knights of Malta, which would be two different, but yeah, and then
they're two different, right?
But you have the Cistercians, the Rosicrucians, the Masons, the Freemasons, and it's one line of thought. That island is, in my opinion, important in that line of thought. Very much so. Whatever's on that island is important to this ongoing line of thought and people involved in this line of thought. What that line of thought is, well, you can start decoding it. You can go back to Jake Roberts and Bexonian Cipher and start decoding what some of that line of thought is. It's their club members.
Yep, he is. I was just they're club members.
James, they're calling for you.
Yeah. So we were kind of, Linda. I know Linda. And I was talking to Linda. Linda was talking to Jim McQuiston, but talking to him and telling me, we need to get you back on the show. He's got a
wealth of
book. I think he already, I can say that. Yeah. He's got the new book, but yeah. So I'll let him explain that at some point here. But yeah, we got to get Jim. We got to get you back on the show.
Sure.
And Court. This is really, really, really deep and interesting all at the same time. Yeah. So, yeah. That's a thing, folks, when you bring up the chat, and I can click on, if you're on the Facebook side and you haven't clicked on that little thing, because of Facebook has this little rule of their own. If you're on Twitch, if you're on YouTube, your name pops up, no problem. If you're on Facebook, you have to click on that little link and allow StreamYard to use your name. And I forget, it's over there. It's on the Facebook side. So, because I really want you to get acknowledged for your comment. And so if you make that comment like Linda did right here, because she did it on the Facebook side, it doesn't show her name, but if you click on that, then we can actually have your name on there too. Cause I really like you to get credit for the comments and the questions that you bring up.
And or put a dash and put your name in it.
Or put your name, or you could do that too. You could put your name at the beginning of your comment or question.
Yep.
That way we know. That's a good. Thank you, John. That's a good idea as well. If you don't want to allow StreamYard to use your name, then you could do it that way. So because we really, and again, that's why we enjoy doing this, because we get your comments, and so, I want you to be acknowledged for it, for sure, because that's. If I do my best to try to look over and get the name for you so I can put it up there. But have they ever dated the plank Tony and Jack have found in the swamp? Oh, that old one from that big long one that they found a long time ago.
Never heard anything about that.
No,
I don't know.
think we've ever heard.
I thought it was. I really thought.
Was it?
Excuse me.
I thought it was too. I can't remember what.
Linda, do you remember remember that big long? It was like 15 feet long or something like that, wasn't it? That big long.
It was huge.
Plank.
It was a plank. Was it a ship plank? That they
think it is. They think it was a piece of decking. So, yeah, Linda, if you could, I don't know. I don't remember if it was day. I think it was. I'm really pretty sure it was.
Well, I think we should start a pool on the Facebook group of how many cans are going to be going in the ground.
Yeah, there you go. Everybody take a guess.
We got to make a guess. We got to put bets on this. How are we going to do this? In the next couple of episodes, it's going to start. The equipment is coming. They're rolling in. They're going to start putting cans in the ground. Is it 1? Is it 2? Is it 3?
Set up a Facebook poll.
Facebook poll. It sounds like
all right. You hear that? You hear that, Linda? We got to do a Facebook poll. Colin's calling for it. It's going to say, okay, how many 10-foot caissons did they put into the money pit in season 9? 1, 2, 3, or 4? You know, they said they were going to try to do 4.
That's right.
So, somebody wants to know how much money. It's Judy. Judy Rudebush says, how much money? She wants to know what you're going to win for.
We definitely know they did 1 for sure.
Yes.
So definitely a can in the ground. Is there more?
Right.
That's
and we're not talking about can on top of can. We're talking about separate holes that they put the cans into.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Tom Burns says 1. Pam says 3. Jen says 2. We're going to do the poll. We'll put the poll out on YouTube or on Facebook. And for those of you who are on YouTube that aren't in our Facebook group, you can join. It's the Curse of Oak Island and Beyond Facebook group. You can come over and join. We have to be admitted. It's not open to the public yet. It is a private group, but everybody's welcome. We just ask that when you do so, you are courteous. It's okay to disagree with people, but do it in a nice way. Don't slam people with your opinions and all that kind of stuff. I'm telling you, Linda and Jan and Tom Burns are adamant about it. Be nice, play nice. So
it's only a small group, isn't it, Jeff? Like, I don't know, 25,000 people.
Yeah, we only got about 25,000 people in there so far, but yeah, I forget what it's up to today, but it's grown leaps and bounds. It really has, but everybody participates. That's what's so cool about it, and for the most part, everybody stays nice. Yeah. Like I said, it's okay to disagree. Just be nice about it. It's and let's see. Link says StreamYard. Yeah, go there. Just 2 clicks. Yeah, Linda, and let me put that up there. So Linda said this. So all of you go to Facebook page and look at Jeff's remarks at the top of the page. One of the links says StreamYard. Just go there. It's 2 clicks, and it allows to use your name then, and that's all it does. It doesn't. It doesn't ask you a bunch of information. It just allows for your name to be shown on YouTube when you're on the Facebook side. That's all. That's all it does.
Yep.
So it's harmless, and all that. It's just that way we can see who you are, and you can get acknowledged for putting up your comment. That's why we want to. Wow, guys, 2 hours. I tell you, and we we could go so much deeper, but Barbara said rats, all the bacon jokes went astray. Yeah, well, but thanks for a wonderful time, informative show in Germany, 3:30 a.m. Have learned so much. Night, Jeff, John, Colin, and Dale.
Wow.
And all the others. That was probably Anne Marie. Yeah, Anne Marie Lickfeld. Thank you, Anne Marie. She stays up and watches the show every Wednesday. Anyway, thank you guys for coming by tonight and joining me. I appreciate you so very much and giving your perspectives and your local perspectives and everything on there. Wonderful. I appreciate it. And thanks everybody for showing up tonight for the chat. We had 90 to 100 and some people showing up all night long again. Great. Really enjoy all that. We had 170 comments just on the Facebook side.
Wow.
It's been way more than that on both sides, but hey, if you're out there on the YouTube side, click on that subscribe button for us. We really appreciate all the subscribers. It does help us out. And if you like the content, give us a thumbs up so we know how we're doing. And give us a comment. Let us know where you're from and all that kind of stuff in there. We really like that a lot. And we're going to put that poll up. We're going to get that poll going so we can see how many. I don't know what the prize is going to be. We'll you'll get recognized. Yeah, we'll talk about, once we find out for sure how many there was, your name will be plastered everywhere that you got it right. All right. There might be a bunch of you. Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Amy. I appreciate that. Super sticker. All right. Thank you so very much. And that's why we have our Patreon channel for those of you who'd like to help support the channel and make all this possible. It does have cost to it, but we really appreciate that all so very, very much. Thank you, Amy. That was very nice of you. Appreciate it. All right. So don't forget tomorrow night, Oak Island and beyond Oak Island. beyond Oak Island, and we're going to have I forgot his name already. Robert Westrick is going to be with us and sharing his information about the 1715 fleet. So that's going to be a lot of fun. So be here tomorrow night, 7:30, right here, same place, same channel. Yep. We're going to have at her again. And yeah, we got some stuff Sunday, Beyond Our World, and with Court Lindahl. All right.
Yes.
Thank you guys for being here. Appreciate you. You guys have a great rest of your week, and we will see you tomorrow night. All right. Bye-bye.